With Pokémon Day coming at the end of this month, the Scarlet and Violet saga finally concluded, and rumors of the next Nintendo console being announced this year, it feels more difficult than ever to predict what's next for Pokémon. Pretty much every year past, they've announced some kind of new Pokémon game on Pokémon Day, which has made the rumors and leaks online go absolutely wild. From Pokémon Let's Go 2, Black and White remakes of course, and even speculations of a new Legends game. For all we know, they might not even release a main series game this year and really take their time to iron out all the intricacies of the next titles. So today I thought it'd be fun to give you guys some of my predictions / ideas for the future of Pokemon, what I think might actually happen on Pokemon Day, and just talk about what's been going on in my life because it has been pretty crazy. You might notice I am finally back in the States here in Texas after my 3-month-long Japan trip where I recorded quite a lot of content that's going to be coming out throughout this year. So hope you guys are excited, and if you are, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for all that juicy content coming out throughout this year. And I'm actually going to try to balance again between Twitch and YouTube, so anything that's like actual Pokemon games will probably be here on YouTube, but anything that's not Pokemon will be on Not Munching Orange, the Twitch channel, which does include Pal World. If you guys enjoyed the few Pal World videos that I made, I'm going to be streaming the rest of the game over there on Twitch, so definitely go follow. But let's begin with perhaps the most divisive topic / prediction, and that is the potential Pokemon Black and White remakes. Now, it's pretty much inevitable that they are going to happen eventually. Like, we've had a remake for every other generation up till now, with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl being the latest and perhaps least favorably received, mostly due to the art style, you know, the chibi look and the whole faithful remakes thing, which basically meant it was exactly the same as Diamond and Pearl. Besides for the Underground and Ramanas Park, I can't think of any new things that they really added on versus like previous remakes. Felt like they added a lot more than just new graphics. Thinking back to it though, I guess Fire Red and Leaf Green were closer to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl than other remakes, so I guess we have two types of remakes in the Pokemon universe, which begs the question, what will the Black and White remakes look like when they do eventually come out? I think after BDSP, most people don't want the chibi style, which makes me wonder if they'll even rehire Ilka, the company that was behind that game, to make the Black and White remakes. I mean, they have worked on a lot of other games in the past, so they are capable of making like really good graphically looking games that aren't that chibi style. Personally, I would love if they got another company to make the game just so we can see what kind of fresh ideas they might have. Like Bandai Namco actually worked on the new Pokemon Snap game, and that looked pretty freaking good graphics wise. But regardless of what the graphics look like, I really wonder what they will do with the gameplay, because Black and White had actual sequels, Black 2 and White 2. So for remakes, would they combine both into one? Like take some aspects like the gym leaders maybe from Black and White 2? One of the main complaints with the original Black and White was the fact you could only find Gen 5 Pokemon, and then Black and White 2 sort of fixed that. I mean, it's kind of personal preference, but they did add a bunch of Pokemon from previous generations as part of like the main story, like before the post game. So when it comes to the remakes, that's probably the biggest question. Would they go back and only have Gen 5 Pokemon? I mean, I really don't think people would like that, especially after the whole Dexit controversy back in Sword and Shield. But personally, what I would love the most, and I think actually fits perfectly with Black and White already, are more Paradox Pokemon. I mean, if we think back to the Hoenn remakes, that was Gen 6 when Mega Evolutions were introduced, and we ended up getting more new Mega Evolutions in the remakes. So Paradox Pokemon in Black and White make a lot of sense because these were the first games that had the whole past and future theme, with entire areas being version exclusive, Black City and White Forest being themed after past and future. So with Gen 9 or Scarlet and Violet also having heavy themes of time travels, past and future, I feel like Paradox Pokemon would fit right at home in the remade Unova, and I really hope if they are considering the remakes next, that this is a feature, or I guess Pokemon forms that make it in there. Heck, they could even do alternate past and future forms for the original dragon, but I guess that might be better saved for a Pokemon Legends Unova game, which I will talk about later in this video. But there's actually a third possibility regarding new Unova games that I've seen floating around online, and that is the possibility that they don't do remakes at all and instead make Pokemon Black and White 3. Again, Black and White were the first time that they did actual direct sequels, so they could continue that tradition and make a threequel. Is that even a word? Of course, in the Indigo Disc Scarlet and Violet DLC, there were a lot of references to the Unova region, with the DLC actually taking place in Unova, the Blueberry Academy. But the biggest references were, of course, characters that are actually related to gym leaders from Unova. Mainly Lacey is the daughter of Clay, which is actually confirmed in the epilogue. And then there's Drayden, the Dragon type Elite Four, who's the grandson of Drayton. I think maybe I got those names backwards, but they're definitely related as well. I think it'd be pretty sick if we have the Elite Four return as gym leaders in Unova, like in the future. And then we also have super old versions of like Clay, because maybe Drayden at that point might be dead. But regardless of what we get when it comes to Unova, the feature I most want to return is the Pokemon World Tournament. You guys might not even remember this because it didn't really get that much hype around it when it first came out. At least I don't remember seeing too many people talk about it, but it was exactly what it says. Like, trainers from all over the Pokemon world came together in this tournament, sort of like the one in Galar actually, but way better because you had characters like Cynthia, Red, Blue, gym leaders from pretty much all the different regions. Wally, I think, might have been in there. Now, with 5 more generations having come out since then, you can have characters from even future games come into the World Tournament. They never actually did a battle facility in Scarlet and Violet. That's one thing that really missed in Gen 9. Like, not everyone likes playing online, and this sort of brought a repeatable endgame challenge. They could even import the models from Pokemon Masters if they're feeling lazy. Like, you literally have HD models of pretty much every Pokemon character readily available to use. So no excuses, Ilka, or whoever makes the game. Now, while I completely believe that the Black and White remakes are coming eventually, I don't think they're actually going to be announced for this year just yet. In fact, I don't even know if they're going to do it this generation. They might just wait for the Nintendo Switch 2, which is rumored to be coming out next year. I mean, the Switch just recently became the best-selling console ever in Japan, I believe, so it would be very weird for Nintendo to stray away from the whole handheld to console hybrid idea. So I feel like the Switch 2 will pretty much be the same as the Switch, just with better like capabilities in terms of graphics and processing and all that. So basically able to have better running, better looking games. Black and White remakes, they need to look as good as possible because that's going to be the next big seller besides for Gen 10. So when it comes to this year, if we do get new Pokemon games, I think the most likely might just be Pokemon Let's Go Johto. That's definitely been the biggest rumor going around, that it's going to be Let's Go Meryl and Pichu, or most recently I saw Togepi and Wooper. There's actually like a makeup logo. I'm not sure if it was confirmed, if it's fan made, but it definitely wouldn't surprise me. I'll entertain the idea just because, you know, we have an actual logo I can show on screen. Like, why the frick would they do Wooper and Togepi? They're not even like really counterparts. I mean, I guess individually they're both pretty popular, like Togepi from the anime, and Wooper has become extremely memeable in recent years. But there's just something off about this pairing to me. Even the Pichu and Meryl mock-ups were kind of weird to me because like Meryl is a middle stage, like Azurill exists. So if anything, I feel like a combination of Pichu and Togepi would be the best representatives for Let's Go Johto, since they're both baby Pokemon, and that was one of the features, like the biggest feature maybe introduced in the original Gen 2 was the fact that you could breed Pokemon and make eggs. If I'm being honest, the whole idea of a Let's Go 2 specifically being in Johto seems a little bit weird to me, because thinking about having to catch every single Kanto Pokemon again and there's only 100 new ones to catch, it just feels a little too repetitive. Or I guess back then that was revolutionary. It was like 2 games in one, but now it seems a little weird, like going back. And when it comes to building upon the Let's Go formula, I don't think there's really that much room for improvement. I mean, they didn't have held items in those games, so I guess you can add that. But then again, the whole point was kind of like simplifying the turn-based system, making it easier, I guess, for kids. I guess the best thing they could probably improve is making more rideable Pokemon. That was probably one of the more enjoyable things in that game, is the amount of Pokemon that you could ride on the back of, like in the water, on land, and in the sky. They could make it so like every Pokemon is rideable, and that might actually help for future titles if they want to improve, like, you the ride feature basically, or just in general how Pokemon interact with the environment and with your trainer, because that's one thing that they definitely could learn from that certain other creature collecting game. Maybe not Let's Go, but perhaps the next Legends title, which, I brought it up, so let's just move on to the next most hypest rumored Pokemon game coming, probably not this year, but Pokemon Legends, Celebi or Kyurem. A Legends Unova game would go hard, let's be real, and they could tie it in with the Black and White remakes just like they did last cycle. Not saying that's what's gonna happen, because Game Freak don't really seem to stick to the formula all that much nowadays. Back in the day, of course, they would just do the third version, but now it seems like every generation's totally different. So we might get Legends Unova alongside the remakes. We might just even get a Legends Johto game instead, like this mock-up someone made on YouTube a while back for Legends Celebi, which looked absolutely awesome for a fan made, of course. I feel like if Pokemon themselves made it, they would have to put some improvements into the Legends formula. Not saying that it wasn't great, like Pokemon Legends was probably my favorite mainline game from the past few generations. Like basically since we came to the Switch, Legends has been the most innovative, most fun, most addictive Pokemon experience, at least for me. And that's in part due to how much they changed up from the actual turn-based formula. Like you barely had trainer battles in that game, instead focused on like catching them all, which sounds like it would have been boring, but I don't know, I feel like I'm not the only one that actually enjoyed it more. But if they were to bring back Pokemon Legends, I feel like they should have more interaction with your Pokemon. Like we only had 5 ride Pokemon and they were all tied to the story. I feel like they should just let us ride, whatever party members we might have, like my Hisuian Arcanine. Imagine you could ride on the back of that, or if you caught, I guess Charizard wasn't in that game, but if Charizard's in Legends Celebi, I would want to ride on the back of it like in Let's Go, flying around the region with whatever flying type Pokemon you have and not just set to one specific one. It feels like the building blocks are there. Like you can send out any Pokemon to help you knock down berries from the tree or like break the rocks, but they could go so much further. And that's actually the aspect that I would most want them to sort of learn from Palworld. I'm not saying copy, but they could probably copy the homework, change it up a little bit if you know what I'm saying, and make it so every Pokemon has some kind of utility outside of just battling. I feel like that would work really well in Pokemon Legends. But also the beginning, man. Like, regardless of what Pokemon games come next, they really need to streamline the beginning segment. The whole tutorial, holding your hand, teaching you how to catch Pokemon. Honestly, they should just make it optional, because like, yeah, there's always gonna be a person, or I guess a kid, that's their first Pokemon game ever and they might need that. But for every other player, it just feels like a chore and absolutely kills replayability, because no one wants to sit through all that dialogue again, which is perhaps a bigger issue with Pokemon story in general. I feel like most players just mash A through it, so they really need to condense it and maybe add voice acting at this point. Pretty much every other major Nintendo game has.
Scared of heights. That's what I'd say.
Well, no wonder. But no need to be scared if we go together.
Oh!
How does that logic work?
Get on!
Those are without a doubt the biggest, most likely next Pokemon games coming, but are they happening this year? I don't want to say that I'm hopeful, because I would actually rather they don't. And this has been a sort of sentiment in the Pokemon community that we're so used to a game coming out every year now that a lot of people are kind of divided on, do we want Black and White remakes already, or do we want them to actually take a year off so that they can make them better and not have the mess that happened with Scarlet and Violet again? Though that didn't seem to affect sales, so who knows at the end what Game Freak might do next. But at least personally, I wouldn't mind and would probably rather that they take their time, especially if it's something like Black and White 3 or Legends, something out of the box, something big. I would rather they take their time to really make it hit, not just with Pokemon fans, but with gamer audience in general, something actually different and good and fun. If it takes them an extra year, I am definitely more than willing to wait. But if we're being real, there will still be a Pokemon game this year. And if it's not one of the 3 that I've mentioned already, then it will more than likely be a spin-off title. Like maybe we could get the return of Mystery Dungeon, or even a more obscure series like Pokemon Quest. I've actually been hearing a lot of buzz around this game again, which if you don't remember was like this Minecraft blocky style simulation auto battler game. So in English speaking territories, this game was discontinued essentially. Like there was just the base game and that's it. Never updated, never touched again. But in China, Pokemon Quest is apparently huge. Well, I assume it has to be at least somewhat popular because they continue to keep updating this game to this day. They're all the way up to Gen 4 now. And in terms of graphics, this is a really fun, unique looking game. I mean, it is basically Minecraft Pokemon, but still that's aesthetically very cool. And I wouldn't be surprised if Game Freak needs a filler game for this year, something to hold the fans over if they bring this back, because essentially you would have to do no work. Like the Chinese version already has all these updates. It makes more sense to me to just release it as a full package for $60 or whatever. I don't know if that would really be enough to hold people over, so I'm trying to think what else we might get. Hold up. So the DLC introduced the Synchro Machine, which you guys probably know by now is where you can take control of your Pokemon, play as them, run around the field, auto battle. I mean, it's kind of cool, but obviously lacking in a lot of ways in terms of gameplay. That feature could definitely be expanded upon, and maybe I could even see a whole spin-off game where you play as your Pokemon. That's right, baby, it's Poké Park 3. No, I don't think it's gonna be Poké Park 3, but I could see them making an entirely new spin-off game where you play as your Pokemon, and it's more of an action RPG. Like the best way I can describe it is by showing you footage of Pokemon Generations, which was a really old fan game that came out, I think 10 years ago now. And I played it here on my channel. It even had multiplayer, like you could play against your friend and battle in real time. Like you control your Pokemon and you even choose what attacks they use. Basically, it would be mapped so the 4 moves that your Pokemon has are like X, Y, A, and B.
You see that little yellow ball underneath your health?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you can like combo, like tackle into that. Yeah.
And just completely miss it.
I think that would slap. Like a real-time Pokemon battling game, the closest we've ever gotten to it is Pokken, but that had too much fighting game elements, which like I suck at fighting games, so I did not play Pokken for too long. But if it wasn't a fighting game, if it was like an actual Pokemon game and just the battling itself was more real-time, I feel like that would go over really well and maybe even get implemented into like future Legends games, or probably not the main core games like Gen 10, because I feel like there will always be a need for the more turn-based. But like in Legends, it feels like that series, they could try new stuff out. So whether it's actually implemented in that or they do a whole new spin-off to test the idea, see if people like it, I mean, that sounds like a pretty good move to me. That way, if people don't really like it, you don't, do that again. But it just feels like the Synchro Machine could definitely be built upon. I don't want them to just abandon this idea entirely. The fact that it was thrown in last minute in the last DLC feels like it's a hint that maybe they're working or cooking up something bigger with it. So let me know what you think. Would you play a more action, real-time Pokemon game with that kind of mechanic? Do you think Pokemon should release a game this year or take a break to make sure the next one is actually not a mess? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.